Thank you, family. I don't want to say welcome because welcome is something that you say to like people are like, oh, welcome visitors, come on in. You're my family. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you for watching live. You're also my family. And we love that you tune in and catch us every Sunday night. I am so excited because I get the privilege to be bringing the word tonight. And we're going to be... We're going to be in the last week of the series that we've been in, You Greater Than You. And Pastor Mac, the handsome Pastor Mac, has done a great job navigating us to the book of James, which really calls us to be a doer of the word. So I'm really excited because I get to be in James 2:17, which I believe is the thesis statement for the whole book of James. So it really sums up the whole book of James. And if you're taking notes, which I hope that you are, I'm about to give you the title for my message, is I Wish, I Think, I Faith. And tonight, hopefully, I get to encourage us to really live out our faith, have an active and a living faith. Before we get too deep into the message, though, I would like to admit something to you guys. Go ahead, confession time. And I would like to tell y'all about my lack of faith in the English language. Let me explain this to you. So, some of you may know I'm Colombian. I was actually born in Colombia, and I lived there for about 10 years before moving to America. I moved right to Arlington, Texas. And I didn't know any English at all, okay? So I am an ESL student. Yes, English is my second language. And every single day I feel like I'm learning something new. Because let me tell you what, English is hard. And you probably don't even know because you were like, okay, yeah, I was born here, so I know English. But it's really hard. And it makes no sense, okay? Let me give you some examples. Let's take this word for example. That says bass, and many of you will be like, yeah, that says bass. I'm like, I agree, that says bass. And then you're also going to tell me that says base. And I'm like, no, that makes no sense. Like, why does the same word have two meanings and spelled the same way? That doesn't make any sense. What about this word right here? This one is really funny because every time I say it, I have to make a face with it, like, dove. Or then you're going to say it also says dove. And I'm going to say, no, that says dove. Because in Spanish, what you see is what you get, okay? It's so simple. If you're having a hard time, it's okay, just sound it out and you'll be there. Okay, and then this next word right here. I messed it up earlier because this is how hard it is. And it gives me a headache, okay? So, 2 S's. What's that? 2 S's. Think about it. It's something like, someone told me once, if it has, this is you want double because it's so good. I'm like, oh, dessert. Yes. And then you're going to say, it's okay though. Just drop 1 S and it says desert. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. And then we also have this word right here. I hate it so much because it says aisles. And you're telling me that the S in the middle is silent, and then the S in the end you're going to pronounce. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You know who the real MVP players are? It's the spelling bee champions. I'm like, way to go. Y'all are awesome because English is hard and it makes no sense at all. So regardless, even though I distrust English a whole lot, I'm going to be speaking to you guys in English tonight because your only other option es que empiezo a hablar en español y nadie me va a entender, right? Okay, so that's what I thought. So, if you have your Bible, go ahead and open it up to James 2:17. If you don't have your Bible, you can get your app out. And if you don't even have that, don't worry, I got you. It's going to be on the screen right here. So, you ready? James 2:17 in English says, so, also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Faith by itself without works is dead. And I know that many of us have heard this passage many a times, but I would like to maybe bring out 3 responses that we could have to this passage that maybe we know we're doing, maybe we don't even know that we're doing this. So, the first response that many of us may be operating under that we don't know about is that we're wishing. We are living out our lives wishing that our past were different. We wish that we hadn't lost our job last week. We wish that we had parents that were there and supportive. We wish that we weren't addicted to drugs. We wish that we hadn't made that mistake. We wish we hadn't been in that relationship. We wish we had enough money to pay our loans. The truth is that the past is real, and I get it. There's stuff in the past that we wish hadn't happened. We all in this room have made choices that we regret. We've all had stuff done to us that maybe is not our fault, totally out of our control. And tonight, this is what I'm not saying. So hear me out. This is what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that we need to live our life in denial, pretending that the past didn't happen. I'm not saying like it's bad to wish that your past didn't happen. It's so bad. You should just live and pretend everything's okay. That's not what I'm saying. Okay? I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that God wants us to deal with our past, not dwell in it. The problem is that many of us, we don't know what it means to deal with our past. So what we do is we like to dwell in it. We want to live in it because that's the only way we know how. Okay? Some of us, let's say that we've had an absent father, or maybe we've had an abusive father. What this world wants you to do is say, because of that past hurt, you're going to live in that. And because of that, that's what you're going to be now in the present. Because all the stuff that was done to you, and because your father abused you, now today, you get to call yourself as an individual that has daddy issues. And because of that, it's okay that this has happened to you and that you do this because you're a person that has daddy issues. So what you have allowed is allow the world and the enemy to tell you who you're going to be. So now you're going to begin to dwell in that hurt. Everything that you do is going to revolve around that dwelling and that pain. What God wants for us is He wants us to learn how to deal with the past. He says, the difference between dealing and dwelling in it is that when we go back to remember the things that may have hurt, He wants us to remember the times of spiritual significance. He wants you to remember the times that He got you out of that. He wants you to remember the times that He said, look, I have all these promises for you. Don't forget. Don't forget. So don't wish that your past were different. Deal with your past. Don't dwell in it. If we begin to dwell in the past, we will become our past. We will begin to see the same mistakes happen over and over again. We will begin to see the same sin come back and creep in. We will begin to see that we are believing the same lies over and over again. And what God wants for us is to be able to overcome those lies and overcome that generation of sin and generation of curses that haunted us for so many years. He says, I want you to learn how to deal with it. I don't want you to dwell in it. God wants to restore our faith once again and to push us forward. So deal with it. Don't dwell in it. So some of us are like, okay, listen, I hear you, I'm there. Or some of you guys are maybe like, no, I don't really struggle with that. Like, I've had stuff happen to me, but I'm not living in my regret and living in my wishing. Well, maybe you're doing the other thing. Maybe that's in the past, but maybe what you're doing is you're thinking. And this is what I'm talking about here in the now. We're thinking about our present. We're thinking about our circumstances. We're thinking about our situations. What we start doing is we start seeing our situation, we start sitting there and we're thinking about it. We're like, okay, let me just think about all the things that could happen. Let me just think about all the possible things that could go wrong. Let me just think about, try to find a solution for this. And what we begin to say is, all that thinking begins to fill up with worry, and then we begin to say things like, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm just thinking about how I'm going to make rent this week. I'm just really thinking about my marriage. You know what? It's probably not going to work out. We're probably going to get a divorce. I'm just thinking about it. Just can't stop thinking about it. I just can't stop thinking about how I'm going to find a job. So as you're sitting there thinking you're doing a good job because you're like, oh, I'm being proactive and I'm thinking about my situation. I'm thinking about how I'm going to pay off school. I'm thinking about how I'm going to go to nursing school. I'm thinking about all these things. What you have allowed to do is you have allowed the enemy to fill you up with worry. So you're covering up your thinking and really you're just sitting there worrying. So you're stuck because you're frozen because all of a sudden you feel like you can't move. You have anxiety. You start having panic attacks. You just feel overcome with the emotions. Your thoughts have overtaken you. And these might be some indications that we're living in this thinking pattern. You sit there, you think about a situation, you're anxious, you're worried, you start having panic attacks, you can't move. Or maybe some of us, because you're so worried, what happens is you begin to have bitterness and resentment towards other people. Oh, must be nice to have their life. Oh, if only they knew what I was going through. Or maybe we start gossiping about their personal business because it makes us feel better about ourselves, Like, let me tell you about what they're doing over there. Or maybe what we're doing is we get excited or feel good when someone else is in a harder spot than we're in. Like, okay, good. They can handle it. Maybe I can't. Guys, this is not what God's calling us to do. He's saying you're missing out on my promises and on my blessings because you're focusing on all your worrying. Now you're turning against others and against yourselves. Our thoughts are meant to turn us towards God, not against others and against ourselves. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." Not to make us anxious and stressed and unable to cope with life. Our thoughts are meant to push us towards action. And this is exactly what James 2:17 is calling us to do. It's calling our faith to come alive. We're not called to be wishing. We're not called to be thinking and worrying. We are called to be faithing, which I thought I made up this word, but Mac told me I didn't. Faith, I-N-G. Like an action faith, okay? We're called to have a living faith. And the living faith is all about timing, okay? The right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing, okay? What if Abraham did not leave when God called him to leave because he just didn't think it was the right time? He's just like, well, Lord, you haven't told me where I need to go, and I'm not going to pick up everything and go. Or what if Sarah would have trusted in God's promises that he made to her, and instead of rushing the process and having Hagar come around and bear a child, and then in turn have Hagar, which let me tell you, she is a human being with feelings and emotions. What happened to her? She was rejected and expelled into the desert. Faithing means acting in the now with a doable and rational plan that God has already called for us to do. The problem is that many of us are in this pattern of what I like to call the can't waiters over here and then the regretters over here. So let me tell you about the can't waiters. We are the people that the thought hasn't even finished crossing our mind and we're like, yep, I'm doing it. Like we don't even think twice about the consequences, okay? We think like, oh yeah, this is a good thing, like God's wanted me to do this, I'm jumping on it. And what we like to call having a bold faith, because that's what we have a bold faith because we're just trusting the Lord. Really what it is are just rushed statements and rushed actions that are not even backed up by faith at all. So what we do is we rush God's timing. But maybe you're like, no, I don't feel like I'm over there. Maybe you're over here with the regretters. And we're the people that maybe we have a good idea. Maybe we have a great idea. Maybe it's a God idea, but we are going to play the waiting game. We like to wait. Waiting is fun for us. What we do is we're like, okay, this is good, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for the right time, okay? No, yeah, you do that. I'm waiting, though. Like, this is what I'm meant to do right now. I'm in a season of waiting. And then I'm going to wait some more. And then when I'm done waiting, just for good measure, I'm going to wait a little bit longer, and I'm going to sprinkle some waiting on top. And then, as the opportunity comes, is here and it leaves and we're like, bye opportunity. As soon as it's gone, you are filled with regret. Okay? We are missing out. We are missing God's timing. We wait to apply for the job because we just are not sure we're ready yet. Maybe we turn down a promotion because we're just not prepared. We need a couple more years. Maybe we wait to get involved and volunteer because I need to be at a church for about 2 years and wait to make sure I just really feel called. Or maybe we wait to give because, I'm just waiting for the right time, the right opportunity. When God gives me all this money, I'm going to give. You just wait. I'm going to give so much. We're missing out on God's promises when we do this. Hebrews 6:12 says, so that you may not be sluggish. I know what that word means, sluggish. But imitators of those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. We must act according to the promises that God has given us. We must act on it. Do we know his promises? Do we trust him? Many of you may say, well, how do we even know? I'm about to tell you. So first thing we need to do is we must read them. Open up his word and hear him. Romans 10:17 says, so faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. In other words, from hearing the truth. When we hear the truth, it will compel us into action. Next thing we must do is we must talk to him. Ask him for wisdom. Proverbs 4:6-7 says, don't forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it costs all that you have, get understanding. So it's so important that we ask him for wisdom. It says right here, it says, though it costs all that you have, get understanding. And many of you are probably like, well, I get, wisdom sounds nice. Like, that's something I should have. But, why is it that important? Wisdom will open up our eyes to the right timing. Because a living faith is all about timing. We don't want to be like the can't waiters and rush God's timing. We don't want to be like the regretters and totally miss his timing altogether. That's why we must ask for wisdom. And it says he will give it to you. Ask him for it. And then, once you do that, this is so important. You must do it. You must do it. Matthew 7:24-27 says, everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on the house. But it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against the house. And it fell. And not only did it fall, great was the fall of it. So the wise man, he's the one that hears the words and does them. The foolish man is the one that hears the words and then doesn't do anything about it. So here's the bottom line. I don't want you to miss this tonight. This is like the most important thing. Are you ready? Everyone paying attention? Everyone awake? Okay. Both have a house. One heard and did something. The other heard and almost did something. So which are you?